everybody. Welcome to the Let's Play podcast. I'm Charlotte, and this is Jonathan.
You.
And we have already had an amazing start to 2024 with a bunch of games, and I know I'm already behind on games that I want to play, so we thought, why not rank all the upcoming games that we want to play?
Curious to see if we have any hot debates about
Hand-to-hand combat.
where it goes.
First up, we have Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I know it's only like a month ago or so that we saw the trailer for this as of the time of recording this. Where was your hype level when you first saw that?
I was probably more excited for the trailer than I actually am for the game.
I'm kind of interested to see what it's going to be offering specifically in that like action-adventure genre that maybe other games of a similar genre aren't going to be offering.
Yeah, honestly, to me, first person indie, it doesn't sit well with me. And it's not just because, when you're playing quote unquote iconic characters like, Batman or Spider-Man, part of the fun is like seeing them in action. But also beyond that, I just think of the action adventure genre and, going into temples, navigating booby traps. It doesn't feel as fun as it could be if it was third person. Maybe the gunplay will be fun, obviously, because that's what Machine Games does really well. But when it comes to like the puzzle solving and navigating the temples and the tombs, I'm not as excited about that first person aspect of it.
Yeah, so I would maybe say that this is peaked for us, and we're definitely interested to see where it goes. I'll also say any game that's like tied into a major media franchise, I'm always like even just a tiny bit prepared for it to be suddenly canceled and we never see it again.
Kind of surprised because I am a huge Indiana Jones fan, but let's be real, Indiana Jones hasn't been at the golden age for quite some time. So I think maybe this will help bring it back. That'll be interesting.
One that actually has a release date, which is very soon. It's Dragon's Dogma 2, which is releasing in March.
It definitely looks like the combat is very cool, and a lot of that like mob type attacking is interesting, how you're like taking down these big monsters and you have to really coordinate between your different party members. That definitely sounds very interesting.
How do you feel about the fact that the like open world map is supposed to be a lot bigger in this game? I know we've had reservations about like open world is great, but it should be open world with a purpose.
When the promotional material seems to be super focused on, everything's bigger, there's so much more to do and side quests and blah blah blah, I get a little bit hesitant and worried because just like you said, it sounds like there's a potential for a lot of redundancy and bloat. But if it's serving the story and the character progression in a meaningful way, then it could be good.
For me, I feel like this would be a maybe later, just because.
Wow, you're going maybe later. I wasn't gonna go that far.
I mean, it is just like I haven't played the first one. This one isn't one that's really on my radar. So for me,
I can get behind that. That's okay. Yeah, and it's also when it's coming out too. There's so much coming out in Q1 of this year.
Yeah, I'm like already.
It's going to be tough to squeeze that in.
So next up, we have Star Wars Outlaws. It's definitely an interesting take on the Star Wars universe, and I just really like the idea of expanding the Star Wars universe in ways where it doesn't have to be the same 5 like popular characters that everyone knows. I like building out the universe in a way that makes it feel like a big galaxy with a lot going on.
One thing that does give me a little bit of skepticism about this is when I think of Outlaws, the underworld, I just expect it to be like a little bit more gritty and maybe like a little neo-noirish, and not that it has to be like hyper violent and you're solving murders or dealing drugs and all this really adult stuff, but there's just something with the mood, the tone, kind of how the visuals look. And I know it's Disney, it's Star Wars, you probably can't reasonably expect something like that, but there was just something about the subject matter and the presentation that felt a little bit out of sync for me.
For me, this one will live and die by kind of the reviews that it gets.
I mean, I know I'm sounding down on it. I am very interested in it though, because I really like the Fallen Order games, the Jedi games.
Yeah, and I really hope that they take the lesson from like Jedi Fallen Order, Survivor, that people really enjoy that like strong narrative in a single player experience. I hope that they are creating a satisfying story to go with it, as well as, here are a billion things that you can do in the galaxy. But yeah, I feel like this is probably
I think it's
Positively
between,
peaked.
Yeah, it's kind of between ecstatic and peaked. I'd say we can go peaked because for me, there's probably a slight chance I won't play it if it, like you said, if it gets like really bad reviews. All right, next one is a biggie.
Like, yeah, take my money. Like, we're going to be playing Grand Theft Auto 6.
I think one of the things that gets lost in the Grand Theft Auto series is like how good the stories are and how well written they are.
There was definitely like a part of GTA 5 where I'm like, I'm very invested in this. Oh my God.
Yeah, I was replaying 5 recently, and I was just struck by how even just the interstitial kind of like conversations that happen between you and the quest givers, it just feels so real and lifelike, and they're even like the minor characters are very fully realized. I do like the whole kind of like modern day satire aspect of it, but it does have that television level polish to it.
Yeah, I also feel like when you're writing satire like that, like there are many games and like many satire written things in general, you can have the satire, but every single thing doesn't have to be about that. Like it's a little like, yeah, I get it after a point.
That's a really good point. I think the Grand Theft Auto games, they do a good job of balancing it because there are a lot of like genuinely tense moments that they balance with the more lighthearted or scathing commentary type stuff. I'm really, really excited, partially because after seeing the trailer, it really looks like they're going to be making a comment on social media and the 24-hour news cycle and how that really affects our daily lives in dramatic ways. And because you can see a lot of like newsreel type footage, people doing TikToks, and I'm really curious to see how they add that element of society either into the story or into the gameplay.
One of the pros, I think, of any Rockstar Games production is the fact that like they have the reputation and the resources that they can, you know, really take their time on a game and make like what they want to deliver. But also when you are making kind of that critique of social media, it's like social media moves so fast. It'll be interesting to see how they tackle that without making it feel like, oh, we're referencing like Vine.
MySpace, right? Yeah, no, I think I have faith in them that they're going to probably be very forward thinking, and they'll probably even have like references to AI and virtual reality. And what's the Apple thing that's going around now? Those headsets where people are like, you know, how do you feel about the fact that this one seems to be focusing on a couple?
One, like interesting. Two, obviously I'm never super ecstatic to have to watch the general gamer community respond to a woman existing in video games.
True. It definitely seems like they're going for that Bonnie and Clyde type of story. I think it has really great potential. What I'm really interested to see is if they have the relationship dynamics between the two of them be kind of a gameplay mechanic, if you can like do certain things that piss off the other person, or, you know, I expect there's going to be a lot of ups and downs in the relationship, and maybe they get split up at points, because so much of Grand Theft Auto gameplay is just like letting you go crazy and do all kinds of nuts things. So trying to intermingle that with having a serious, meaningful relationship with another person I'm very excited to see how they try to pull that off.
Death Stranding 2. My feeling on it is I did not play Death Stranding 1.
Oh,
so
you're missing
here
out.
I am. I definitely will probably dive into it at some point, but it's kind of the same as my approach on like some people's reaction to like the revival of Twin Peaks, where I'm like, did you actually like this, or are you just like giving into kind of that like hype?
It's a fair question. I do really like Hideo Kojima. I think he has like really an amazing gift for just like creative storytelling, specifically character designs. And just, it's awesome that he's one of those auteurs in the industry that has that blank check and can kind of do whatever he wants creatively. And I think that's very valuable. I do have some quibbles though with his storytelling techniques. I feel like even though I love the Metal Gear games, I really did love Death Stranding. He tends to overcook things a lot. Like a lot of conversation scenes, they tend to be 3 times longer than they need to. There tends to be just like way too much exposition and like heavy-handed kind of explaining the plot that I don't think he needs, because he does such a good job of creating interesting worlds and interesting characters that if he worked with like a story editor, I think that would actually do him a lot of good.
You mean like Jordan Peele?
Yeah, that's a great point. Although that's not for Death Stranding.
Yeah,
that's
I know.
For a different game. I am very, very excited though, because I loved the first Death Stranding. I thought the gameplay was like totally original, and it really blended with the plot in a perfect way. There's so many cool moments in the latest trailer. Like there's like a puppet that you would probably appreciate, because for some reason the puppet is in like 8 frames per second where everyone else is like at 60 frames per second, and it has just like such a funky like jarring effect. And I'm forgetting the actress's name. I think it's Léa Seydoux. She's a French actress. She plays one of the characters, and she has this like double-handed glove thing around her neck that has like a mind of its own. It's like lighting her cigarette and doing all these like funny gestures while she's trying to be serious. And yeah, I don't know. I love that aspect of his mind. There's just like no limit to his ambition.
I'm going to leave this one to you. Take my money or ecstatic?
I mean, for me, it's definitely a take my money.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
if you're not, I would tolerate an ecstatic.
I feel like I'm
but-
fine like sitting this one out and being like, I'm excited for the people who are excited.
Okay, well, we could compromise then. We could say ecstatic. That's fine. All right. This next one is definitely wins the title for best name. Unicorn Overlord.
Though I will say, not super into it.
See, I thought you might be somewhat interested in it because this is a game that's very much in the vein of a Final Fantasy Tactics Ogre, if you played Triangle Strategy, which I did not for the Switch.
Some of the gameplay footage definitely gives me the like Fire Emblem vibes.
Yeah, very much
But
so.
I guess like these sort of games, I just feel like there isn't anything in this one that particularly captures me and goes, oh, that's like unique enough or like intriguing enough that I want to take the time and money to check it out. And I feel like it would probably be a like situation similar to like Fire Emblem Three Houses, where if it did like do really well and like people are like, oh, this is actually really amazing, I would probably check it out.
Sounds like you're in the snooze fest category for this one.
I would be fine with maybe later because like again, if
You were
people
harsh.
are
Don't
like-
go back now. Don't
I
backtrack.
said if people say that it's great, I will check it out.
Okay,
But
all right, fine. We'll put it in maybe later then.
our next one is Deca Police, which is coming out ?
Yeah, I'm actually mad at you for even putting this game on my radar because I had no idea it even existed. And then when you described it to me, I was like, oh my God, this actually sounds like really cool. And then as soon as I got my hopes up and looked into it, it got like delayed.
Yeah, like so far the news stories, like there have been news stories that it's delayed to 2025, and then there are news stories that are like, no, it's not delayed. And I'm like,
Yeah, I heard conflicting reports too. So.
but yeah, it's one where I feel like JRPGs, anime, that sort of genre, there's kind of like that bullshit litmus test of like sometimes stuff in that vein is like weird, but in a way that you really enjoy. And sometimes stuff there is like weird and you're like, it's not working for me. And this is one where I'm like, I'm intrigued by the art style. I'm intrigued that it's being made by Level 5. I'm piqued because I'm like, if it continues to look compelling, I will definitely check it out. But there's definitely a world where like, as we hear more about it, I'm like, actually, that kind of looks dumb.
Yeah, the fact that it's level 5 is really the big selling point for me because I really like their last two games, or at least their big like Ni no Kuni games. And yeah, the art style really sells it for me. Do you know what kind of game this is? Because now that I'm talking about it, I couldn't quite figure it out. Was it like a detective game or a...
Why? It's a crime suspense RPG.
All right, that I'm compelled. We'll see. Hopefully they do a good job. So what were you thinking? Peaked?
Yeah, definitely peaked for me.
All right, yeah, that's fair.
All right. Hollow Knight Silksong, release date TBA.
I'm still hoping this comes out in 2024. I feel pretty confident it's going to come out in 2024, at least at some point. But a lot of people thought it was going to come out last year. So unfortunately, there hasn't been a lot of news about it. I do know the Team Cherry, the developer that develops this game, they work on a very small team.
Yeah.
So that goes both ways because on the one hand, obviously it's going to take longer, but you can really see that sort of artisan type process and style that's going into the game. Every little blade of grass, every character just feels like super curated to whatever vision they have. And I'm really, really excited for this game. I love the first Hollow Knight.
Well, obviously a small team and, fewer resources is a struggle when you're trying to make games. I do think it helps sometimes, especially with telling a narrative, because you really have to plan out what you're doing and commit to it because you don't have the resources to be like, oh, this isn't working. We need to like completely restart.
Exactly. Yeah, I think the world that they designed, specifically like the art style and the fact that it's like this bug kingdom and there's sort of like a cutesy, cartoony aesthetic to it, but it is like a serious dark story. So I actually really like that dichotomy, and the music's like really atmospheric and great. In this one, the character, I think their name was Hornet, sort of like an antagonist type ally in the first game.
Ooh, an anti-hero.
Kind of, yeah. So now she's the main character in this one. She's like a lot more nimble. There seems to be a lot more verticality and speed with like how you navigate the world.
God,
And
I love when games, aka the Lego games, are like, this character's a woman, so she can jump higher.
there you go. Yeah, it goes back to what was it, like Princess Peach and Mario 2? She can glide.
So yeah, is this a take my money or an ecstatic?
For me, this is definitely a take my money. Speaking of Princess Peach,
Yeah, so
I left you speechless.
I feel like neither of us are going to play this. And not
No.
for any fault of Princess Peach or it's just you don't even have a Switch.
Yeah, I do play my nephews occasionally, but yeah, it's not the type of game that I would get like really excited for. It's the type of game that if I just happened to play, I'd be like, oh, this is like really good. This is amazing, but I'm not waiting with bated breath.
Yeah, I feel like it's the sort of game where if someone was like, you have to be in this room for 8 hours, here's this game, like, and a Switch, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is actually really fun. Good use of 8 hours. But I probably wouldn't take the time out of my normal day to play it. And like, I don't want to put it in the zzz category because I'm like,
It's a little rude.
it's hard to say that any other category because we're not going to play it.
Yeah, I'm
Put
sorry.
it in the corner.
Really? That's a little. Nah, we gotta put it in the Z's. Come on, we have to stick to our guns. We'll see if anyone else. If she's the only one there, maybe we'll.
When I'm
reconsider.
found dead in my apartment,
Oh, so this next one.
I have not played any of the other in the like Mana series, but I will say like looking at the gameplay trailers, gameplay and art style of this one appeal to me much more. I do love a good RPG when I have time to dive into a good RPG, so it's definitely one I think if I have time, I will be checking out.
I have a long history with the Mana games. I think Secret of Mana, which was the first one that came out for the Super Nintendo, that was probably the first really meaty JRPG I've ever played, and that one got me hooked on the genre like completely. It was so goddamn good. But after that, for some reason, the other Mana games never really clicked with me. I'm kind of in the middle on this because I'm always hunting for that like nostalgic feeling and trying to recapture that. I don't know, there's just an element of it that feels a little samey to a lot of these other like modern kind of anime inspired JRPGs that I don't love as much.
I would say it sounds like maybe we're both kind of around the like peaked maybe later.
Yeah, I think that's about right. I'm rooting for it. I want it to be great, but I have my doubts up until now. So we'll say peaked, you think?
Yeah. All right, so next up we have Silent Hill 2, which
Ooh.
I specifically have to pull up the shop description
Oh, no.
that I tweeted a screenshot of. My name is Maria. The woman smiles, just like my late wife. What does this mean?
That is very confusing.
I'm assuming what we're supposed to think here is his wife's name was also Maria, but the sentence structure implies that the woman smiled like his wife, the woman spoke like his wife.
So they did release a trailer of this at the last State of Play, the Sony State of Play, but there's an element of it that it feels just a little like cash grabby to me. You know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, these Resident Evil remakes are doing so well. Let's just do Silent Hill. I don't know. I watched the trailer and it didn't really pop. And I think the problem that I had was because I remember the original being like really like methodical, slow pace, really building the tension, and it might have just been the way they presented the trailer. It was very fast paced editing. It focused a lot on like the combat, and I just feel that's a little bit of a detriment to what the game I would assume is like really at its core, which is like building that overwhelming sense of dread and not knowing if you're like going crazy or not. And I wish the trailer focused more on that kind of angle.
So I feel like this is kind of another one where we're kind of like peaked maybe later.
For me, it's probably like a maybe later.
Yeah. Our next one is one that actually has a release date, April 26, 2024. What is this?
So this is a game that actually I've been aware of for a while, and I was very curious about it. Yeah, it definitely feels like a game that's towing the line between like a Devil May Cry, Bayonetta type of like really stylized, kinetic kind of like flamboyant combat with a little bit of From Software kind of deliberate managing weaknesses in boss fights and things like that. I'm pretty excited because one thing I liked about what's been revealed so far, in terms of the story and the world setting, it felt like I got a lot of like Ghost in the Shell kind of vibes. But yeah, the combat looks very, very cool. A lot of the enemy designs are very interesting and creative. I dug that. Even the UI I thought had like a nice striking look to it.
Yeah, I feel like those sort of games for me kind of live and die by like gameplay being fun, but also it not just being like, oh, you're pressing one button to do like fancy stuff. Like there is a bit of, you know, like actually thinking about what you're doing while still like it being satisfying to play.
Yeah, I hope so too. I couldn't quite get a sense of whether or not that was the case from the trailer. Ecstatic feels kind of strong.
Yeah, I don't know. This feels like a peaked.
Yeah, because if it, I could definitely see it going south if it's not done well. So yeah, maybe it's still a little bit of a wait and see kind of peaked.
Alone in the Dark. This has been a long series, and this is now a remake of the first one. Did you play the first one?
I did. I played the first one on a computer, on a PC, way back when.
Played it on one of those computer devices.
Of those crazy white boxes. I loved it. It was awesome. It was probably one of the first 3D with like polygonal characters games that I could ever remember playing. And this was, if I'm not mistaken, this was before Resident Evil. So it was also kind of my first introduction into that survival horror type of game. And yeah, I was obsessed.
Watching the trailer for this remake, a lot of the things that it's hoping to do, I feel like sound really interesting, and I know are like things that compel me, and it's definitely something I'm hoping will be worth checking out. But I guess like the trailer I watched like wanted them to push kind of like the style of it a little bit blander than it should be. And I guess there's always that fear, you know, when a game is like, oh, and we've got these like famous actors to come in and be the characters, that like that's what they're putting all their like, this is what we'll sell it into, and like maybe it's not the best gaming experience.
So it sounds like you're a little down on this one.
I'm suspicious of remakes in the year of our Lord 2024.
It is getting a little tiresome with all the remakes.
Speaking on horror games, we have the Outlast trials. Really, really loved the first Outlast, and then I loved the DLC, and then I played Outlast 2 when it first came out, and like it just did not do it for me. I was not a big fan of the writing, and kind of like, I don't know, something about when they swapped to a more like out in the world experience versus being trapped in a building. I didn't have fun playing it. I didn't really enjoy the horror that they were going for. That being said, that the Outlast Trials is kind of a prequel to the original game. I'm interested to see if they can kind of recapture that vibe of the first game that I really liked.
For me, I feel like we should have a new category called I'm Too Scared to Play It. The first one really compelled me, and I watched some streams of like other people playing it, and I was just like, there's no way I could play this by myself. It's way too terrifying.
I feel like I definitely will probably play it. I might not play it like day it comes out.
We'll say ecstatic.
Yeah. Hades 2, which I know is supposed to release in early access. Going into a game like this that was so popular and like very specific things that fans were responding to really well, like what are you hoping for from a sequel? Are you hoping for more of the same?
Honestly, if it's pretty much the same as the first Hades gameplay wise, and even just with how you like interact with the characters and the whole like roguelite type of loop, I'll be a little bit down. Just because I hope they find a clever way to sort of build on that, and maybe some kind of hook where it's expanded beyond the traditional just, okay, I'm just going to have to like go on this perfect run.
I feel like I trust them enough as like a developer of, and just like telling good stories, that I feel like they wouldn't approach Hades 2 if they didn't think that they had good reason to do so and had like a game to tell.
That's what I hope. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like for this one, I'd say maybe it's ecstatic. Like I'm definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably definitely play it, even if I don't end up loving it as much as the first one. But yeah, there's no way I'm not going to play it. So I think ecstatic is good.
And now that we've placed all the ones here, I have to call out that Jonathan did not add Sonic X Shadow Generations to this.
Right. That was...
And I need a special category box added for games that I think have a really funny name.
That was a clerical error. Sorry. I did actually. I think I even made a picture for it. For some reason it got lost in the shuffle. So yeah, sorry, Sonic. I wasn't gonna play that though. No way in hell. No offense to Sonic fans out there.
I just have a screen cap of IGN's tweet that's like, Sega confirms Sonic X Shadow. And I'm like, why did they do this?
Oh man.
But yeah, we would definitely love to hear what you're excited for, how you would rank some of these games, if there are any games that you're super hyped for that we left off.
Thanks for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe if you appreciate these videos. And yeah, we'll see you next time.